Today I am joined by Aaron Evans, who plays for Persis Solo in the Indonesian League and is a bit of a trailblazer for Aussies in Asia. Thank you so much for joining me today, Aaron.
No, thank you, and thank you for the time. I'm really glad to be here.
Now, I told you just before we got started that I like to keep things a bit light and laid back, and I think my first question really, exemplifies that. And just where did your passion and love for football first begin?
Yeah, so I've loved football ever since I could remember, ever since I could start walking or talking or whenever I could think or process things as a young boy. I was always football minded. I loved it, loved watching it, loved playing it. I was surrounded by it in my family. My old man, my father used to play. My older brother, who's 18 months older than me, used to play. So it's just been basically in the family my whole life, and that's where the passion grew, I guess, over time. And then, yeah, I guess I grew the ability and the confidence just by, I guess, applying my trade at such a young age, and that obviously motivated me to one day, hopefully, which I have, become a professional football player.
And when you were a kid growing up, first finding that love for football, did you have any sort of football heroes or idols who you watched on the TV? If so, who were they?
Yeah, so I was an Arsenal supporter, still am an Arsenal supporter since I could remember. And as the cliche says, once you pick a football team, you do not change a football team no matter what. And I stick by that 100%. I was born in 1994, so I was through the generation of the Arsenal Invincibles phase. So that was an amazing, I guess, time for me as an Arsenal fan. So I grew up idolizing Thierry Henry. Um, Obviously, I didn't go on to pursue the same position as him, but just the way he was, his aura, just the way he presented himself on and off the field, like I really idolized him. Um, but my household growing up, my old man was a Liverpool supporter and my brother was a Manchester United supporter. So it got pretty heated and it got pretty full on at times, let's say, but it was also a lot of banter and a lot of fun as well growing up with all of us, I guess, having passion for different teams.
Now, for you, when you first made your sort of debut into senior football, you're only very young. You're actually 16, I believe. And for me, when I first made my debut in senior football, I was around the same age, 15, 16. And I remember the day I got the call up. I played youth football earlier in the day and then got called up to the seniors. And personally, I was shocked at how different it was, how physical it was, how different they played, and just I got bullied off the ball, to be honest. So for you being a defender, coming in at such a young age, playing sort of a role that's more physical than what I played on the wing. Did you find it difficult at all stepping up? Did you get bullied or anything, or did you kind of have sort of a more easy transition?
I was quite quietly confident in myself because of the fact that when I was 14 years old, I went over to Croatia to do like a trial training camp with Dinamo Zagreb at the time, which I still believe is the number one club in Croatia. So I got that experience at a top flight level already prior to me getting a senior call up. And then also before getting a senior call up as well, I was picked in the under 19 Australian schoolboys team, which traveled to Brazil and Argentina, and just getting that insight of professionalism in another country, in a foreign country, and I guess learning the passion and the quality that those kind of players have and the expectation and the level of training and everything at such a young age. My transition into, I'll say, senior football or MPL football, where I did make my senior debut, was quite comfortable for me. Obviously, it's natural at that age as well to have your nerves, to have your doubts, I guess, or feel like you're going to feel uncomfortable. But when I stepped over that white line and walked onto the pitch, those concerns or those worries or nerves just go away, because at the end of the day, football is what I love to do, and that's where I speak my language. So it was an amazing experience to I guess play my first senior level football at such a young age as well.
And I'm noticing a sort of pattern in your career when I was looking at the stats and the figures. You've done a lot of things at a young age. You know, you just mentioned Dinamo Zagreb and the schoolboys and all that sort of thing, but you also made a massive move, a massive decision to go over to Asia as a teenager and play football with Taipo in Hong Kong. So firstly, how did that move come about?
Yeah, so I realized also at a young age that it was going to be extremely difficult for me to get into Europe, as the rules at the time were you needed to have one European passport, so EU passport, or you had to play a certain amount of national team caps, or like played games with the national, like the Socceroos. And obviously I'm a realistic guy at the end of the day, and I realized that wasn't um, on the cards at that time, unfortunately, as I wish it was, but unfortunately it just wasn't. And also at the time I didn't have my Croatian passport, so because because I'll give you a bit of background on that. I'm mixed Australian Croatian. So my mother's side of the family is Croatian and Slovenian, and my father's side's Australian. So I realized also when I was in Croatia that I was eligible to get the Croatian passport. So once I was over there in Croatia and realized that, we actually started the process and the steps to getting me a Croatia passport, just to basically have it in my pocket if inevitably Europe was a call. But the process of that took longer than I thought, or that any of our family thought as well. That took 4.5 years, which was quite long. Um, just the paperwork that went into it, the back and forth, that kind of stuff. So that was the reason why I looked at Asia. At the time, personally, I didn't even know Asia was such a big footballing country. Obviously, growing up as a kid, everybody wants to play in Europe, play for Arsenal, Manchester, you name it, the big clubs in the world, as I did as well, and as I still do, of course, because I'm so passionate. But I guess I knew that wasn't an option at the time, but I still wanted to become a professional footballer. So the people that I had around me at the time, I guess the people in my circle and the people advising me and, managing me, um, put across the table that Asia could be an option. Um, they said to me, obviously, it might not be easy to get into Asia, as you are classified as a semi-professional and you haven't had any professional contracts yet because you are such a young age. But the people who were in my circle tried their best to, I guess, get my name in the door and get me to anywhere in Asia. So I'd been playing with Canberra FC, the Croatia Deacon football club at the time, and we'd just played our semi-final of the to make it into the final, and we'd won the game. So we had the final the following weekend, and immediately after the game, I got a call from one of my mentors at the time, Kaz Patafta, who used to be an ex-professional football player as well, played for Benfica, played for the young Socceroos as well. And he called me right after the game, and I was a little bit like shaken or shook up by the call, because obviously I just finished a game. I was at such a young age, so my parents were still at the game. They were obviously there to drive me home. And then Kaz called me and said, "Oh, look, I want to meet you for a coffee tonight." And I said, "Well, I just finished a game. I want to go home, do my recovery, rest up, blah, blah, blah." And he said, "No, no, no, I think it's a good idea we go for a coffee like right now." And I don't know, I had that feeling. I just had that sense that it was obviously something important, because he did know I had a semi-final that we just won as well. And that following weekend I had a final. So I got off the phone with him, told my parents, "Could you please drop me off at the coffee shop?" And they were like, at 9:30 at night. I was like, yeah, just drop me off. Like, I've got a feeling. Anyway, I got to the coffee shop, and Kaz was sitting there already. He'd already arrived, and he had three papers sitting on the table, but face down. And I sat down, obviously a little bit of chit chat, a little bit of, basic basic talk first. And then he said, "So I've got some news for you." I was like, "Okay, cool." He goes, "Oh, but there is obviously add-ons to the news that I'm going to give you." I said, "Yeah, no worries." whatever it is, just let me know. So he turned over the papers, 1, 2, and 3, and it was a pre-contract and a professional contract with Typo in Hong Kong. And he said, look, this club is interested in you and they want you here. And I was like, I was ecstatic. Obviously, I was over the moon. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I was good to go. And he said, but here's the catch. I said, lay it on me. And his response was, oh, you have to be there in 3 days because the league starts in 5 days and they want you playing in the first game of the season on Friday night against Kitchi, which is in I'd probably say they are the best team in Hong Kong to date, and they were definitely back then. And he said, look, you've got a game against Kitchi on Friday night. You'll be in the starting 11 against probably 25,000 people. And I said, let's go. 100%. Like, there was no hesitation from my end. I loved it. I was all for it. So we obviously wrapped up that meeting, and then I got back in the car with my parents, and they could tell that I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. And I didn't say a word to them. I just handed them over the papers and just sat there in complete silence. I think I was still in shock because I was still processing it. And they were in tears as well because they obviously know how hard I've worked and it's everything that I've wanted. I said to them, like Kaz said to me, oh, but there's a catch. And that's when I said, oh, I have to leave. I have to leave and I have to be there in 3 days. And they were all for it. They were so supportive of me. They said, this is everything you've wanted. Obviously, they were sad to let me go, and not so much that they had their concerns, but obviously letting me go at such a young age, such an inexperienced age as well, because my family and our relationship is so close. They were all excited for me, but they were also, I wouldn't say concerned, but they were not worried, but, you know, they obviously had those thoughts going through their head. So, yeah, I ended up getting my life, I'll say my whole life, in a suitcase, and I was on the plane within 48 hours. Arrived in Hong Kong, and then once I arrived in Hong Kong, I had to do the visa situation. So I flew to Macau on Thursday, got back on Friday morning, which was game day. And then I hadn't even met my teammates at all until the pre-match meeting that we have before we obviously head off to the stadium. So that was the first introduction I got from absolutely every single body, because we did the signing before I'd left to Macau. And then, yeah, got on the bus, got to the stadium, and it was surreal. There was, as Kaz predicted, there was 25,000 people, and I was in the starting 11 for that game. I played defensive midfield. I played 75 minutes. And as I was walking out pre-match, it just so happened that Kaz, my dad, and my mum were in the stands as well. So they got to witness my first professional game as well, which was just overwhelming and amazing.
Being a professional footballer and making that debut, I think, is something that everybody dreams about, whether or not you're good at football or not. So for you, having such a crazy situation where you pretty much had everything happen so quick and you wouldn't really have time to process it all, do you think that helped you overcome any nerves you might have had? And for that match, how do you think you actually went during that game? Do you remember how you played?
I remember it like it was yesterday. First of all, the excitement, obviously, and just, I guess, the hype around actually being able to call myself a professional footballer finally. That was what obviously got me through, and I enjoyed the rush of it all, in the sense that it happened so fast, because like you said, I think it was better that way because there wasn't much time to process it. There wasn't much time to overthink it or overplan it. It happened like go, 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 go. And I liked that. And then obviously when I got onto the pitch and I ended up playing 75 minutes of that game, it was by far not my best performance at all. I think the overwhelmness, the excitement, everything did get to me. And the fact of obviously not knowing my players, not knowing their names, not knowing the way they play. Obviously my first full stadium as well. Like it's a lot going on, and it happens all in a flash and a blink of my eye. And just the level and the pace of the football and the skill like you've obviously got to be in it, you've got to be around it to witness it. And that was, I was literally thrown in the deep end or thrown right in the ring. I loved every second of it, but yeah, I wouldn't say it was obviously my best performance, but I did learn a lot from that experience. That's for sure.
In a normal scenario where pretty much you're not flying and doing all this visa stuff and everything, now that you're more settled, when you have a big game that you know you got to prepare for, do you have any sort of pre-match rituals or routines that you go through, or are you pretty much one of those people who can just go to the stadium and just play their game without doing anything like that?
Look, I used to have a lot of pre-match things that I thought were necessary. I was very, or I still am, I guess, in a way, very strict on myself, strict on my diet, my training, my sleep, etc., etc. And I guess I'll say in my early years of being a professional athlete, I was adamant that I had to do all these things, and if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to play as well as I know how to play. But now, obviously, because I'm an extremely experienced professional football player, I still do have pre-match rituals, as in the night before a game. I like to cook, so I like to cook my own spaghetti bolognese. I like to get in my 8 hours of sleep, and then I like to wake up in the morning, go for a light walk, a light bike ride, get some fresh air, do my stretches. Um, but if it doesn't go to plan or it doesn't go the way I guess that I thought it had to, or how it used to, it doesn't affect me at all anymore. I know my ability. I know that I'm ready. I know that I'm confident. I know that I'm good to go. So if there is a little bit of, I guess, speed bumps on match day, I brush it and I just focus on what's the most important thing is, and it's that 90 minutes on the football pitch.
Now, you played across a couple of countries in Asia and you've been there for quite a while now. But when you first sort of settling in, coming from Canberra, going to Asia, where obviously it's a different culture, was there anything that was a bit of a culture shock to you? I remember when I interviewed Ernie Merrick, who was the Hong Kong national team manager, I was actually shocked at how he said it was a lot like England because there was a lot of English speakers and a lot of
Yep.
English customs. And that shocked me. But was there anything that sort of shocked you around Hong Kong and Laos and everywhere like that?
Yeah, so I've played in Hong Kong, Thailand, Laos, and Indonesia, and all of them have their own, I guess, cultural differences and the way they do things, the way they speak, the way they act, the foods they eat, the weather. So I've pretty much experienced a lot of Asia, a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people, foods, facilities, and all that. Each country that I've been in has had its own, I guess, difficulties or things that I've had to adapt to. But obviously, as I've progressed through the years, I've learned from, I guess, being in Hong Kong. I took that across to Thailand. And as I was in Thailand adapting, I remembered what was going on or how the Hong Kong culture was. And then when I moved across to Laos, vice versa, I went back to my thought process of um, Thailand. And then when I moved to Indonesia, I just basically thought about all the three places I'd been and brought that across to Indonesia. And I guess, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons that I've settled in and been so comfortable in all the countries that I've played in, because it's not easy. It's not easy to adapt. There's a lot of things, obviously, that you do need to adapt to. As I did touch on, the weather, the people, the culture, accommodation, facilities. Like if I was to just be a professional football player in Australia, in my opinion, Australia is the most beautiful country in the world in all senses. The weather, the food, the facilities, the stadiums, everything. So yeah, I'm an adaptable person. I'm an open-minded person. So I guess I just took all different countries and cultures on the chin and just learnt my way to, I guess, adjust to their way, but then also bring my way into it as well and make myself feel as comfortable as possible, as quickly as possible as well.
It's not just the food and the weather and everything that's different culturally to Australia, it's also the fans. You did send me a video the other week about fans outside the bus cheering, going crazy, and it looked absolutely wild. A mate of mine who lives in Indonesia told me the fans are passionate, they're crazy, they're a bit violent sometimes, I've seen some footage and documentaries of the violence. So for you as a player playing in these stadiums where fans are going crazy, whether or not it's cheering passionately or violence, has there ever been any incidents where you sort of feared for your safety or had worries for your safety? If so, like what were they?
So football is definitely the number one played and number one liked sport in this country. There's no doubt about it. The fans are unreal. They're indescribable. Um, Obviously, there's millions of videos on social media nowadays about how passionate, how just incredible they are. But it's not just also on match day; it's also in everyday life as well. So if I was to go to the grocery store, if I was to go to a restaurant, cafe, fill my car up, whatever I'm doing, everybody knows who you are. So there is that kind of, I guess, star status or stardom about us footballers. And obviously, because I'm the unique one, as I'm the foreigner, obviously there's a brighter light shone upon me as well, which is incredible. I absolutely love it. But obviously, with that light, obviously comes the pressure as well. So if our team's performing well, I'm a superstar. If our team's not getting the results or we're losing the games, it's on me and it's on the other foreigners. We've just got to accept that, and I accept that. I'm not bothered. I'm mentally extremely strong, so that doesn't bother me. But in regards to match days, it's a circus. Like it's a festival. It's a show. Like the fans, from the second we're at the team complex, you have fans lining up outside just to get a glimpse of us until we get on the team bus. And then when we're on the team bus, because they ride their motorbikes over here, they follow the team bus, they're chanting, they've got their big flags, they've got their flares, even on the way to arrival just to the stadium. And then while we're in the changing room, getting ready and changing, we obviously hear the atmosphere because the stadiums are already getting chock-a-block full even before we've come out to warm up. And then yeah, when you get on the pitch, whether it's pre-game or whether it's during the game, the stadium's electric. It's bouncing. You definitely do feel the aura, the support, the fans. They're fanatic. They have their flares, their drums, their chants. Like it's surreal. Like obviously, while I'm playing, I can't really notice it, so I rely a lot on, I guess, social media or YouTube nowadays to, I guess, replay that just to ground myself and I guess take in all those moments. But they are incredibly amazing, but they can also be extremely fiery and extremely emotional on match days as well. Like obviously, if you're winning, it's an incredible feeling. But if you don't get the result that they're happy with, it can be extremely dangerous for us footballers. Indonesia, the Football Federation, they try to limit the incidences, like, and try to protect our players' safety by increasing the security or increasing even the police. But at the end of the day, there's still going to be those people who cannot control themselves and do something silly. So basically, after every game, if it's not the result that the fans want or even we want, we get escorted off the field by like police escorts with the shields and the bats. That's a quite common thing because the fans like to throw bottles or throw whatever they have at us. And then obviously, as well as that, a lot of verbal abuse. And then the fans between themselves, there's obviously a lot of adrenaline in their systems, so they quite often get in confrontations between themselves as well, which does unfortunately sometimes end in deaths, which is extremely unfortunate. But yeah, the experience that comes to mind most is I've actually had to travel to a football match in a police tank. And when I talk like a police tank, I mean the proper tanks like you'd go to military warring. So in 2019, I was with a club called PSM Makassar, and we just won the Indonesian Cup against Persija Jakarta, which is social media wise and in Indonesia probably one of the most supported clubs in the country. So 2 weeks after we'd won that, we had to go play them in the league. And then obviously because we'd beaten them for our own safety, they thought it would be best to put us, like, overprotect us. So they got 3 police tanks, with the police all in their proper head to toe black army gear. We couldn't see their faces. They had physical guns, real guns on them at the time. They had the balaclavas, the helmets. They were kitted out, like they were ready for something to go down. And then you could only fit maybe 6 to 8 players in each of the tanks as well. So that was a little bit intimidating in a way, but then it was also extremely cool and exciting, because who can say that they've ever gone to a football game in a tank, right? So the adrenaline was absolutely running through my body for that. But yeah, there's heaps of stories. It happens extremely often. It is obviously known that Indonesia can be quite violent, but on the other hand of that, they are so passionate as well, and they do, when we are winning, they do respect us extremely well, which I appreciate a lot, of course, as well.
Now, in the introduction, I mentioned you're a bit of a trailblazer in terms of Aussies in Asia, and I believe that's certainly the case, especially with this next fact I'm going to bring up. You're the most capped foreigner in Indonesian league history so far. So when you first moved to Indonesia, did you expect to have such a big impact, and did you expect to be there for this long? And how does that make you feel to be able to say that, you've made this much of an impact on such a passionate league, and you're pretty much, as far as foreigners go, an iconic person in history?
Yeah, look, when I first arrived here, I didn't expect to be here as long as I did as well. Obviously, football is a crazy world. Anything can happen. But I guess something's just kept keeping me here, whether that is the fans, whether that is the country. I can't put a pin on what that exact thing is, but then obviously I've been here for this long, and to achieve that achievement, and also there's another achievement that I have as well. I'm the most played minutes out of all players in Indonesian Liga history as well. So not just for the foreigners, but also for the locals as well. So I'm pretty much 1 and 2 in the history books for those two, which is incredible. Like, at the end of the day, I've dreamt, like I said prior, at the start of this interview, I dreamt for playing for Arsenal and Barcelona. But at the end of the day, look at what I've achieved here in Indonesia and in my career. There's not many players who can say that they're number 1 or number 2 in the history books for anything, let alone myself having those personal accolades. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's obviously a compliment to myself and the way I look after myself, and obviously the way I play and the trust that I get from each club, and obviously the coaching staff involved.
And what do you think it is about Indonesia, the league, the stadium, the fans, even the training, that gets the best out of you as a player and has made you, achieve all this stuff and has made you play such outstanding football? What do you think it is?
I'd have to predominantly put it down to the fans, to be honest. Just the way they are. Whether, like I keep saying, whether we do win or whether we do lose, just the passion that they have. Um, and it's amazing to, I guess, get the recognition when you are winning, when you are in a good time, but also I'm the kind of guy that loves criticism as well. So if we are in a bad time, or if we are in a bad moment, whether it's me personally with my performance or whether it's the team's performance, I guess, the negative comments and the negativity around my team or around myself individually, like that. That makes me dig deep. That I find that hunger, I get that drive from that as well. So I'd probably have to put it down to the fans, to be honest, because when COVID hit, obviously in 2020, the league had to stop. And then the league format in 2021, when it resumed, there were no fans at all allowed in the stadiums, and we did a bubble to bubble system. So, for example, we played 3 months in Jakarta, then we went 3 months in Jogjakarta, then we went 3 months in Bali with no fans at all in the stadium. And personally, and I can vouch for a lot of other foreigner footballers here as well, um, we struggled without the fans, I guess. And I think because I've been here for so long, I know what to expect when I go to a football stadium in Indonesia. I expect, not so much expect, but I know that the fans are going to be there chanting us on, or giving us stick. But in 2021, when we didn't have that, I personally found it that extremely difficult to play. It just, not that I didn't want to be there, or not that I didn't excel or give my best. Of course I did, but without the fans being there, it kind of felt like it was a training game in a way. Whereas now we're obviously in a preseason tournament currently, and the fans are allowed back in the stadium, and every game that I've played in has been sold out. It's the atmosphere's been there, the fans have been there, and when times get tough in the game, or when you get a little bit tired or fatigued, not saying I look at the fans to push me or whatever, but just knowing and just hearing that you have that in the back of your head, or you have the noise. It's just that little bit extra, I guess, ticker that I need to go that extra step, or do that extra run or tackle or whatever it is, to get the best out of me.
And you joined a new club, Persis Solo, still in Indonesia, despite some rumours that you were coming back to Australia. So we'll touch on that in a minute. But with your new club, how have you found it so far? How have you settled in, and how are you liking it?
Yeah, look, I'm really, really, really impressed with this club. To be honest with you, they just from last season they were in Liga 2, so the second division, but they got promoted to the Liga 1. Um, it's an amazing atmosphere here. The owner is the president of the country's son, and there's also two other owners who are very well connected. So there's three of them from the top that are obviously extremely well known. They have a passion for football. They know how to run a business, which football is in a way. So I think I've adapted really well, because from the top, it's been incredible so far. And then if you go down to the coaching staff, well, the coach of the team is actually the coach that I had in my team in 2017 and 2018, Barito Putera. So I know the coach extremely well on a personal level, and also on a football level as well. So for me to adapt, it hasn't really felt like an adaptation in that sense, because I know the coach, I already know the country. I've basically played against every single player. The only thing that I haven't done, I guess, is wear the Persis Solo shirt and be with these players day in and day out. But I've been here for a month now, and it's just I've settled in comfortably. Now it's obviously just working on myself, my fitness, um, and my mentality, to make sure that I'm ready for the Liga 1 season when it starts.
Last couple of seasons, I've heard the odd rumor here and there about you coming back to Australia, whether it's the NPL or the A League. There's a few rumors this season actually that you were possibly coming back to Central Coast Mariners. So has there ever been times during your career, because you've been in Asia for nearly 10 years now, where you've come close to a move to Australia, or you considered moving back to Australia, whether it's the NPL or the A League? And is that something you want to do in the future, come back to Australia and play football here?
Yeah, it absolutely is one of my goals and ambitions on my list to come back to Australia. I'll just go back in time a little bit, when I was a semi-professional, I guess. When I knew that Europe wasn't an option, obviously I did look to try to get into the A League. I did have a few training opportunities with Central Coast Mariners, with Adelaide United, and also with Western United throughout the years. But unfortunately, I guess it wasn't the right time, or it wasn't the right move, or they weren't interested, or I wasn't interested for whatever reason. I guess it just didn't fit. So Australia is 100% a place I want to play in before I do end my career, whether that is in the near future, or whether that is in I'll say the 5 year plan. But it definitely is a place that I do want to play in before I retire. That's for sure, because it is the place I was born and raised. So Australia does still hold a massive part in my heart, and I won't feel complete, or I wouldn't feel complete, if I didn't come back and play in the A League. And also, I want to test myself in the A League as well. Like, I obviously watch a lot of it. I've got a lot of footballing mates who obviously play in the A League as well. So I want to, I guess, get in that system as well, and I guess see how my level is compared to them as well. Because it's hard if I watch a game and I'm just a viewer, I look at it and say, oh, I could fit in there comfortably. I'm better than him. I'm better than him. Blah 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 blah. All of that. But at the end of the day, until you're actually in that environment and in that setup and the actual game, I can say whatever I want, just like a fan does, I guess. So it is definitely a place I do want to come back and play and play in. That's for sure.
And now, why you're quite well known in Indonesia and Asia, because you've been playing there quite a long time, and they know what type of player you are. For us in Australia, it's quite hard to watch the Indonesian league or the Thai league and this and that. And I've managed to watch a few of your games, and thankfully, you post a lot of highlights on Facebook, so it's been good for me to get a bit of a judge of what sort of footballer you are. But for any people back in Australia who might be watching this and might be wondering, who's Aaron Evans, what type of player he is, what can you tell them about yourself?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm a versatile player. So I grew up in my youth career applying my trade in defensive midfield. Um, Obviously, tactically, technically, very, very switched on. Hence the reason why I played in defensive midfield as a youth player. And then when I guess progressed on to my semi-professional career, when I started to develop, I guess I call them my engines. Um, Clubs or people that were around knew that I had a high VO2 velocity level and I was extremely quick. So I did also move to the right back position, and I loved that. That was fun. That was actually a position that I got picked for the Australian national team in. Um, I did not expect to be a centre back my whole career. I currently and have for many years idolized Sergio Ramos. He's the guy that I look up to now, but I also never thought that I would play as a central defender just on the basis that your usual stock standard centre back, so 190 centimeters tall and strong. Obviously, I have the strength, I have the physicality, I have the brain, but a lot of countries and a lot of clubs just look for height, which they have a right to, of course, each to their own. But it just happened when I was in Thailand. When I moved to Thailand, I did sign as a defensive midfielder in Thailand as well. But in the second game of the season, both our centre backs got injured midweek, and we were left with no centre backs that the coach trusted to put into the starting 11 for the upcoming game. So he come to me midweek and said, "Look, I want to play you there," and I was a little bit not confused, not shaken up, but I was a little bit as to why. Like immediately I come to my head, I was like, oh, I'm not 190 centimeters. I'm big, yes. In Asia, I'm big. I'm strong, yes. I'm physical. And he just reiterated that fact. He said, at the end of the day, for me, it doesn't come down to height. I trust you. I trust your technical ability, your strength, your physicality. I'm very good with my head. So he said, I'll put you in that position. And I guess I played in a way better than I probably should have, in a sense that he come to me after the game and said, I absolutely love you as a defensive midfielder, but you're never playing as a defensive midfielder in my team again because you just did so well in centre back. And obviously I appreciated that. I loved that. So I guess I've made myself known as a central defender now. But since I made my move to Indonesia in 2017, I've played again quite a versatile role. I've played majority of my games in centre back, but I've also played, I'll say 50-50, somewhat also as a defensive midfielder as well. And then a game or two here and there as right back as well. So look, at the end of the day, I'm not going to say I have a favorite position, but I do obviously like to focus on one position, of course. But I'm also realistic as well. Like for example, if I was to stay here in Asia, I do see myself playing as a as a centre back and being very good and very strong at it, just on the basis that it is unique to have, I guess, the tall defenders. But if I was to come back, let's say to the A League or even to Europe, as I said, I'm realistic and I probably wouldn't be on the radar or the first choice just based on height only. I think when the clubs or the coaches saw me play as a centre back, they'd probably put me there, yes. But just on the basis of height, I don't think centre back would be a realistic option for me. So I'd be more than willing and happy to play as a right back, as I've done that previously, and I'd also be more than willing to play as defensive midfielder. So for me, whatever position I play, it doesn't really bother me. But I also take the positive out of that in the fact that wherever I play, the coaching staff at the time at whatever club I'm at obviously have the confidence and know my ability that they're willing to do that. And I think that's quite unique as well, because obviously most footballers focus on one position and apply their trade throughout their career in one position. But for me, I take a lot of pride being able to play in three positions and obviously do it quite well, seeing as though I'm still a professional footballer playing in multiple positions. Because at the end of the day, it's not easy. It's not easy changing positions all the time. Like, although centre back and defensive midfield might seem like they're similar, they're not. They're really, really different. And then if I was to move to a right back, well, that's a whole another kettle of fish. But for me, I think I can see through this interview. I'm very confident in myself. I know myself very well. I know what I'm good at. So yeah, at the end of the day, if a coach or a club wants to play me in a particular position, you know my name, get in contact with me and we can have a chat.
And we're about halfway through 2022. Obviously you got a new club, new season coming up. So for the rest of 2022 and this season, what are you personally hoping to achieve, and what can we expect to see from Aaron Evans?
Yeah, so my focus obviously at the moment is with Persis Solo. I just did sign a new contract with them. And I just want to give my best for this team currently. Obviously, I do know how football works. I've been in this industry my whole life. I've been in this professional environment for the last 9 years, so I also know how it works. There will be highs, there will be lows, there will be good days, there will be not so good days. But I'm also optimistic and open-minded as well. Like, obviously, I'm really, really, really enjoying my time here, and I hope to give my best performance to help Percy Solo obviously do the best that we can in Liga One. But on the flip side of that, I'm never closed off. I'm never one-minded or one-sided. So look, although I am loving my time here, if there was something to potentially come across the table, whether it was half season or whether it was at the end of the season, I'm open for a discussion. And if I think it's the right move for me and my career, then I would obviously consider and pursue that. But obviously for now, my focus is on Percy Solo as I've just joined a month ago.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Aaron. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers, mate. Thank you so much. Really good to have a chat with you.
Thank you for watching. This video is sponsored by Arrow Sport. Go to the link in the description and the friendly team at Arrow Sport will help you create your own football dream jersey. Whether it's starting from scratch or using one of their many templates on their website, creating a jersey with Arrow Sports is easy and prices start from just $50. Go to www.arrowsport.com.au and make your football kit dreams become a reality.